Doing 4.5 again today. We're spending about 3 weeks on 4.5 sine and cosine graph. We got to write the equation from the graph given, and you're going to write both sine and cosine graphs. And we had these equations last week to find all the parts of the graphs. This week, we got to take these things over here, and we got to find A, B, C, and D to stick into the equation. And we're going to find both sine and cosine. Anybody remind me what the difference was besides the sine graph and the cosine graph? What was the main difference between them? One of them had been moved out. Not quite flipped. Anybody remember how they were different? Okay, quick review here. The sine graph looked like this from 0 to 2 pi. That's pi. This is pi over 2. That's 3 pi over 2. The sine graph started at the origin, went to a max at 1, went to the origin or 0, went to a negative 1, went back to a 0. Did that. Looked like this and does this forever. That is the sine graph. The cosine graph started at the max at 1, went to a 0, went to a min, went to a 0, went to a max. It did this forever. So what can I do to make the red and the black be right on top of each other? What can I do to either one of them? Somebody? What could I do to the red graph to put it exactly on the black graph? Yeah. Horizontal shift. Well, what do we call horizontal shift in or trig function? It's got a different name. Phase shift. There's only a phase shift difference in these. If I slid the black one to the left or the red one to the right, I could line them exactly on top of each other. So there's phase shift. So the only thing that should be different, I guess the A could be different depending on how you shift it, but the phase shift, the C is the main thing that'll be different. The B and the D will never change. Did you all write that down? B and D will never change. So, all right, we need to find, you must find D before A. And you must find B, find D before C. Okay, we got to do those things. So, there's a couple ways to do this. If you look right here, we could change this. I could multiply both sides by B and move the B over here times period, right? Y'all see that? And then I could get B by itself and take 2 pi and divide it by the period, and that would give me my B. Y'all see what I did algebraically there? Saying the period is a variable as well. Multiply the B over, then divide by period. So the B will be 2 pi divided by whatever the period is. The phase shift, if I want to find, I'm going to find B here and stick it in there. So if I want to get C, what I do on this to get C is I move my negative sign. I move my negative sign down with the B and I multiply it over. So this gives me that C will equal negative B times the phase shift. We all good with that? To find D, we take our max plus our min and find the average of those. Divide by 2. That will give us our D. And then to get A, you just count up and down from D. To get A, you count up and down from your D to get to the max or down to the min, and that's the A. The distance A is the distance from the x-axis, and it could be the fake x-axis if D is not 0, to the max or the min. So A is the distance from the x-axis to the max or min. So we're going to come over here, and we're going to do this problem right here, which I think is on the back of the front page. We all look and see if that's right. Is that the one on the back of the front page? Is that where they were? All right, so we're gonna do this one and the one below it, and then we're going to go on from that. So I always want to find the easiest graph first. So what I want to do is ask myself, here's the origin. Does this graph go through that point? No. So it's probably not going to be sine right away, right? Normally cosine, so we're going to do cosine. Now look, this thing says in terms of sine. We're going to do that, but we're going to do cosine first. I want you to do both. Cosine normally starts at a max, doesn't it? But where's this one starting? At a minimum. You all see it starting at the bottom? So do you all see that? I'm going to check D real quick. D is going to be the max plus the min divided by 2. So that's 0 divided by 2, which is 0. So that means my D is 0. You all see where that came from? This is my max. My max is 10. My min is -10. So I take the average and D is 0. So that means this x-axis is the x-axis the whole time. It does not have any vertical shift. So then A is going to be down here. So can you tell me what A is from that? Because I'm starting at the min instead of the max. What would A be? Anybody? What flips the graph over? Negative. So all you use is this value right there, -10. So A is -10. Everybody good so far? Now we're going to find B. So what I need to do is find the period. So I'm going to tell you again what we wrote on the other side. Maybe I should come over here and show you. B is 2 pi divided by the period. So it's 2 pi divided by the period. What do I need to find in order to get period? I'm sorry, in order to get B? What do I got to find to get B? The period. You remember where periods go from where to where? How do you tell what a period is from looking at a graph? Anybody? Min to min, or max to max, or 0 having a top hump and a bottom hump. Any one of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at this max, and I'm going to come over here to this min, or sorry, this min to this min. That's one. This is one period. I could have gone from this max to this max. It's still one period. Okay? So to get the period, you're going to take the right point minus the left point. So what's the right point for this x value? What's the x value for this bottom right here? Anybody tell me? Looking at the graph, what's the x value for right here? Pi. So we're going to go pi minus, what's the x value for this min? What's the x value up here for this min? 0. What's pi minus 0? Pi. So period is pi. So B is going to equal 2 pi divided by pi. What do those pi's do? They reduce to 1. They reduce down to 1, so B is 2. I'm going too fast, or you're not sure about something, you need to tell me. Okay? C equals -B times the phase shift. So that means my B is 2, so that's -2. Take that 2 and get -2, and I'm going to find the phase shift. How far did I shift from here to get to this min here? How far did I move right or left to get to there? Anybody? 0. So my phase shift is 0 on this, so C is also 0. So I'm going to come over here and get my now. I'm doing cosine first. Okay, so I got a -10. I got a period of pi. I got a phase shift of 0, and I'm going to put over here vertical shift of 0. So here's my equation. Y equals -10, because this is my A. Actually, my amplitude is +10. Okay, my amplitude is +10. But I'm doing negative 10 because it should say this. So that means that A is either 10 or negative 10, and we're doing negative because we started at the bottom. And I've got cosine. My B was 2, so I stick 2x in there. My C was 0, and my D is 0, so I'm done. Question? Anybody? Okay, now we're going to do the sine graph. So the only thing that changes on the sine graph could be the A, could change signs to positive, and the C will change. C will definitely change every time. So I want to find a what on this graph. The sine starts where? Where does sine start? Somebody help. Sine starts at the origin, at a 0, right? So I'm going to take my y and I'm going to move it to where I'm starting at the origin. So I'm going to move my y value, right? I'll pretend that's a straight line through there. I'm going to move that y prime over to here. So I should make dash lines. And that says 0.25 pi. So, okay. So we're going to find the new C over here. So my A, B will never change, D will never change. A. Now if I start here at this spot, and I go to a max, would A be positive 10 or negative 10? In other words, the sine normally start at a 0 and go to a max. Yes or no? Me graph sine. The sine normally start at 0, go to a max, and then start at 0 and go to a min. Which is goes to a max. So that means this is not a negative, this is a positive 10. Okay, that's positive 10. And now I gotta find C. So C is going to equal negative 2 times my phase shift. Where did I move this dot? From here to here. Well, how far did I move it? Anybody tell me? How far did that get moved? 0.25 what? 0.25 pi, which will equal 0.5 pi. I don't really like decimals, so I'm going to make it a half pi, which is pi over 2. So there's my C for the next one. So this graph will be y, this is the sine graph, y equals positive 10 sine 2x plus, oops, I left my negative off. It's not plus, it's a minus. 2x minus pi over 2. And then it's plus 0. So I'm sticking this minus pi over 2 in for C. Now, how can I check that? Anybody know what I can do with my calculator? What can I do to check that? Somebody help me. Can't hear you. Anybody? Oh, somebody find me. What can I do with this thing? I can graph both those lines, and what should they look like? How should they be on my calculator? They should be exactly the same. You must be in radians when you graph trig functions, so make sure your mode's in radians. And I'm going to type those two in. Come on. So let's see, we got negative 10 cosine 2x. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type in 10 sine 2x minus pi divided by 2. Everybody there so far? Now I'm going to change my window to what it looks like on the graph. So on the graph, the farthest left x value on this graph is, it says -1. Oops, let's go window. -1.75 pi. And then my farthest right side is 1.75 pi. My tick marks, the first tick mark there, I'm going to show you here on the graph, is 0.25 pi, so that's my tick mark. So I'm going to go to my X scale, which is my tick marks, and put in 0.25 pi. And then I'm going to graph this, and it should look exactly, oh, I didn't do my Y value, sorry. The Y values go from -10 to 10. So there's the graph. Oh. So there's the first graph, cosine. Now, do you see the sine graph's exactly on top of it? See the red going right over it? That means they're perfectly right on top of each other, so I'm good. They are the same graph. Now, does that look like, oops, does that graph look like what's on the graph on the paper? Yeah, do you see it's at a minimum starting down at -10? Do you all see it? Okay, so that tells me those are right. We're going to do one more together. And then you guys are going to do start doing the other ones on your own, hopefully. And again, you may think this looks easy. This is not easy. I've been doing it for a long time. Last problem right here is the bottom one there. So, oh, this is very similar to the last one, isn't it? Where is it starting? Anybody? Starting at -2. Do you see it? -2, the amplitude. And look, let's get D first. D is the max plus the min divided by 2. So that's 0 divided by 2. It's 0 again. So I kind of wish we did. Do any of these have a vertical shift? If they do, maybe we should do that one instead of this one. Yes, we have a vertical shift, but it's only one of them. The one at the top of the last page is a vertical shift. I'm not going to do that. I want you to try it. All right, so this is 0. Okay, and then A, amplitude is how far is it from 0 to the max or the min? A is 2, except we're starting down at -2, so we put a negative in there. By the way, when sine's a negative, that's when you start at 0 and go down, is when sine is A is a negative for sine when you go to the minimum first, okay? All right, so there's A and D. We're going to find B now. B equals, remember what B equals? 2 pi divided by the period. So let's go from a min to a min. What does that say that is? 0.67, right? That's actually 2/3. So I'm going to write 2/3 so I don't have decimals in here. So that's going to be 2 pi divided by 2/3. I got to flip this upside down and have 2 pi times 3/2. So those 2's reduce. So the B is 3 pi. B is 3 pi. Is that too fast? Okay, so there's B. Now we're going to get C. So I'm starting at a min, so that means on this one, C is 0. Okay, so let's write the equation down here. Y equals -2 cosine. Whoops, that'd be cool. -2 cosine. And -2 cosine, and B was 3 pi x. And again, C was 0, D was 0, so I'm done. We're going to do sine now. Where do we got to move sine to? Where's the Y got to go to get the origin? Should we move it left this time? Because you can move it either way. You want to move it left and see what happens when we move it left? All right, we're going to move it left this time. I'm going to use this little cheat thing to draw a better picture. So I'm going to move my Y prime to there instead of where it was before. I could have moved it right and it'd be okay. There's literally an infinite amount you can do. So again, D never changes. B never changes. A and C can change. Now this, if I move my y prime to here, A is going, what's sine doing? Is it going to a max or a min? Min. So that means A in this case would also be -2 because I'm going down. If I was going up, like the last one, it would have been +2. Like if I'd have moved it over here to the right to right there, it would have been a +2, okay? All right, now to get C, I gotta find my period. So I'm gonna go minimum, because it's on the 0. Oh, I already did that. So to get C, C is going to equal -b times your phase shift. So B was 3 pi, so I gotta put -3 pi in there. My phase shift is from here to there. That's my phase shift. So I'm going left, so that means my phase shift is negative. And now I've got to take 1/3, so this is 1/3 in actuality, and take half of that, because this is halfway. So you can either divide by, we'll say divide by half. I got to divide it in half, which means I got to multiply by the reciprocal, which is going to be -2/3. So my C, I guess I should have done all that over here. Oh, my C is going to be -3 pi times -2/3. Now see where that came from? Okay, so this is going to be a +2 pi because that 3 and that 3 reduce. A negative times a negative is a positive, and I get 2 pi. So my sine equation, I'll change color here. My sine equation is y equals -2 sine 3 pi x, and then you look right there, plus 2 pi. Okay, let's check it out on our graph. See if we get it right. Okay, so we're going to go in here and let's see, y equals, I'm just going to type over what I got here. I need -2. -2 cosine, and then I got to come in here and put in 3 pi. 3 pi x. Come down here, and I got -2. And I need 3 pi x. 3 pi x plus 2 pi. So you see how I got those? Now I'm going to take my window and make my window look like that one. So it went from, my x values went from -0.67 to +0.67. And let me move this out of the way so I can find the first tick mark here. So my tick marks are well, it's actually that number I found right here is my tick marks, -2/3. So I'm going to make my tick marks -2/3. And my maxes are, let's say, -3 to 3. And I grab it, and it should look like the graph you see right there. Oh, I took my deal off, and we'll see if the other one lines up right on top of it. There's the end of the cosine. Uh-oh. Guess what? What happened? Anybody know? What's this telling me? We had a mistake. We got a mistake. Can anybody tell me what the mistake is? Is it the amplitudes? Is it going higher or lower than the other one? No, is it D or A? What is it? The C's wrong. Do you see how it's phase shift differently? So we got to figure out what did we do wrong on C. So see how your calculator can show you have a mistake. Everybody see it? How many are thumbs up so far on this? Thumbs up or not? Oh, couldn't see it. All right. So we're going to go back and we're going to have to recalculate C. So we got to find out what we did wrong with C. So let's go back over here and look at our formula. It says to get, oops, wrong one. Let's go back one more. It says to get C, it's negative B times the phase shift. So let's go over here and look what we got. So negative B times the phase shift. B that's the wrong one. We got to go one more, my bad. So B was this thing. And we had to take 2 pi divided by the period. And we said the period was 2/3 from that number. So B is 3 pi. So did we take a negative 3 pi? We did. And we said we were moving to the left 2/3. So we had to find half of a third. There's where we made our mistake. Half of a third means we have to actually, what's the word of mean in math? Anybody know? Anybody tell me what of means in math? You got taught this back in about 5th grade probably. Yep. Multiply. We didn't divide by a half. We needed to multiply by a half. So our phase shift is negative a 6. So let's go and change this to negative 1/6. And then that 3 and this 6 reduce that to a 2. So let's see what happens if we change that to pi over 2. So I'm going to delete that 2 and then put divided by 2. Now let's check that out. So if you notice, you can use your calculator to help you find out if you made a mistake. Do you see it going right over top now? Does everybody see it? Yeah? Are you thumbs up? So I wanted to show you, again, that if you make a mistake, you can use that mistake to help you find where you messed up. Pause this thing. Does anybody have any questions on anything?